好的，我们再一次的温馨提示，请我们在场的各位来宾进入到我们的会议现场。我们下半场的会议即将正式开始呢，在我们第二部分的会议当中呢，我们将会进入到多人对谈环节。首先的第一个多人对谈环节的主题是如何利用沉浸媒介做创意营销。Okay, now let's start with the first panel discussion: creative next-gen marketing campaigns using XR. Now, first, let's welcome the moderator, Aloy Gerard, founder of Qigndao. Welcome. 有请我们的主持人。那同时呢，我们也 also welcome the John Fitzgerald, co-founder of Sensorium. 我们有请 Sensorium 联合创始人 John Fitzgerald。同时呢，我们有请 Eric Shavelin。Creative partner of Sandbox Immersive Festival and SVP of MediaMax. 同时，我们也有请 Kristen Kutikos, the producer at the United Nations World Food Program. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much for being there. My name is Edouard. Yes, I'm introducing quickly myself. I'm Belgian. I live in Shanghai for 7 years, and I do VR and AR for almost 5 years. And I'm here to moderate this cool panel and to introduce everyone. So we're going to show a little video for each. So this is why we just moved, improvised. In VR we improvised, and where we're going to introduce everyone. So Eric will be the first one to show what he's doing. Eric is working for MediaMax. MediaMax is quite of the coolest company doing interactive, immersive media, we could say that, worldwide. He's based in Los Angeles. And please go ahead, introduce and show us what you do.
Sure.
You have to turn on the thing. We work in technology, sorry.
Hi, thank you for the intro. My name is Eric Shamlin. I'm sort of here in two capacities. Eddie honored me by inviting me to one of the partners of the festival, so I've been helping him arrange things for Sandbox for the last 4 years, and that's been a great honor. My day job is SVP of MediaMax. MediaMax is I believe we're the world's largest digital production company. We're 19 offices globally, 1,500 people. If it has code, we do it. Full stop. From giant e-commerce platforms, we do all the hot acronyms, AR, VR, ML, AI, you name it. And we do it kind of at scale for big brands. Most of our clients are the big blue chip companies, we call them the FANGs. It's Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. So that tends to be our sort of client set. Why it's relevant here is we do big immersive projects. I'm going to just play a very short reel, highlights 4 of the projects, but there are many more, and I think we'll have a chance to kind of go deep in one of them later in the panel. Please.
John here, John Fitzgerald, he's living in New York, and he's working for a company called Sensorium, who are doing very high-end AR and VR experience, both in, let's say, marketing and also original content. And please show us your stuff.
Thanks. As mentioned, my name is John Fitzgerald. I'm a co-founder of Sensorium. We're an experiential studio working at the intersection of art and commerce technology based in New York. We've created immersive projects for New York Times, Samsung, Google, Fox Sports, Jose Cuervo, Procter & Gamble, Pitchfork, and Red Bull, amongst many others. I'll show you some stuff coming up afterwards. We play in the fields of VR, AR, XR, motion capture, projection mapping, and basically striving to create work that bridges digital and physical, rooted in innovative storytelling techniques and having fun. When not producing content for a wide range of clients, we also collaborate and create installations and workshops with institutions such as the Museum of Modern Art, the MIT Media Lab, Pulitzer Center, and the UN. Last year, our VR and AR experiences premiered as official selections at Sundance, New Frontier, Tribeca Storyscapes, and INFA Doc Lab. Thanks to Eddie, the Sandbox team, for having us here. Pardon the equitable nature of some of the stuff. I couldn't get to Dropbox, so I downloaded some stuff from my headset.
Really nice. Christine, our last panelist, Christine, is also in New York, and she's working for the United Nations. She was the first one to bring the virtual reality to the UN, isn't it? And founded the department and created many experiences for that. She's still working there now for the World Food Program. And please show us a bit more what you do.
Yeah, so there's going to be a really complicated slide up in a second. I'm not a designer by trade, so it's always funny when you come to a great conference like this and you put up something so ugly. But anyways, so yeah, my background, I've been at the UN for about 12 years, but working 9 years out of all of that. I started off getting my first job through a temp agency, so your dreams come true that you don't even know sometimes. And I started off in campaigning, and so that work was any type of campaigning. At that time, it was mostly photo exhibits and events and other types of advocacy moments. And from there, I moved into an interagency campaign for the Sustainable Development Goals. And that was the UN's first major effort to actually move from being a little bit of a closed-door institution to one that's really thrown the doors wide open. And it was basically a transmedia campaign, so trying to get different audiences involved to really test new media and other types of outreach to inform people about what's happening, to inspire them to pick up the cause and to get involved. And so as part of that, I was part of the original team that brought VR to the UN. And then my role was as executive producer. So essentially trying to figure out how to market that content, how to brand the program, and how to distribute it. So a lot of my experience is using VR for impact impact. I joined the World Food Program last year, and since then have been helping to integrate some of these things that I've learned along the way into their strategy. The UN is mostly made up of different agencies that are primarily funded by donors, but in the last few years we've had a lot of challenges to funding for many different reasons, from just having governments that are a bit more conservative or nationally oriented, or having many conflicts that are really stretching our resources really thin. So it means that we've switched to having to do a little bit more individual fundraising, and also to communicating about our brand and our mission, so that people around the world can actually care about what they do, so they can tell their governments that they care, and to give more aid, and to give more attention, and to get involved in really stopping some of these big conflicts that are driving many of the problems around the world. The ones that we focus on at the World Food Program is hunger. So one of the challenges that I've had to kind of really overcome at the UN is telling people why this is important. So when I first joined the World Food Program, I started to pull together some research about the effectiveness of VR and then AR, because we produced the first augmented reality experience. So this is just a short note about some of the actual kind of top-line messages that we have, and I'm going to give you an easier slide to look at in a second. But we all know about empathy. Empathy is very important. It makes you feel something, and the deeper you feel about something, the more you feel emotionally connected to it. The more connected you are emotionally, the more you might actually want to know more about it, to get involved in the issues that are being communicated to you. Being in a headset means that you are not distracted by your phone or by the people around you, so you pay more attention, which means you then retain the information better. The more spatial awareness you have, the more it feels like you're actually there, the more you remember things actually. And then this is actually really having a positive effect on fundraising, on people signing petitions, and many of the different kind of campaign asks that people have. So this is some of the kind of top-line messaging on fundraising. So we have some examples about how it's hard to make a direct correlation between if we've actually made donors give more money, but there's a lot of instances where we did a targeted outreach at top donors, and we had a positive effect afterwards. I'll draw your attention just down to this part down here, and this is the part to me that's really interesting in the experiential kind of marketing side of things, because it's not just helping us to communicate about what we're doing better, but it's also getting us in front of new audiences and allowing us to have this little cool gadget that people are interested to look at, and then they go and they're seeing for the first time not just amusement park roller coaster rides, but they're also looking at what is it like to live in a refugee camp, for example. And so this has really helped us with partnership building, with coming to conferences like this where we had never been in these circles before, and with really being at the cross-section between diplomacy, entertainment, and technology. So that's a breakdown of what I just said, essentially. And so there's a lot of positive reasons to partner with the UN. We have access to locations and to stories that most people do not have access to. We have access to high-level decision makers, and we're able to bring these stories directly to people that are actually going to make a difference. So it's really a great thing. We also have a pretty well-known brand. So if you partner with us, you can also be able to get your brand into all these places that we go. And what's really great about the way the World Food Program has started to embrace all of this. This is just a quick slide on some of the early stuff coming out of AR. So it's really similar. Positive brand association, recall, retention of information, and desire to know more about the brand. So when I actually go to planning these exhibits, and one of my tasks with the World Food Program is not just designing this strategy, but also working with the different offices to teach them how to do it, so that they can then start to move from just traditional communications to advocacy and marketing and partnership building. So these are kind of the key messages, and we do all of this discussion before we even decide whether we're going to do an exhibit or not. Because the great part about these types of exhibits is that they can be scaled to any size and any cost, and they can be really tailored to the target market. So here's a few quick examples. My video download didn't work, so I brought some pictures. This was in September. It's in the lobby of the United Nations. It's a multimedia organization where we launched the augmented reality, but they also had VR. There was a hydroponics display. There was a cinema ad that's been touring, a social media wall, videos, things like that. We started to integrate events where we had high-level ministers come in. We had a wall of selfies where people could kind of, do some social media stuff. This was 2 weeks ago in the European Council for the European Union. We were the first UN agency to ever have an exhibit there. So that's the example of the augmented reality, which is here at the expo if you haven't had a chance to see it. And that's a hydroponics display, which is non-digital, but is actually one of the biggest draws that we have in our exhibit to show that technology doesn't have to be the highest tech, newest thing. It's actually something that's just repurposed for different reasons. This was last week at the Cannes Lion. So this was a different exhibit that was not just looking at data innovation technology, but also looking at just the way that we're experimenting with these new communications to try and tell our story better. And just a final plug, I'd like to just point out my two colleagues, Wei and Bohan, from the Communications and Partnership team at WFP Beijing. This year is the 40th anniversary of WFP's presence in China. So one of the reasons we're here at this festival is to meet new partners and to try to get some great ideas to actually produce another exhibit and to produce different types of media to really draw attention to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Maybe we could get back to the middle of the screen. It's all about mise en scène. And start a bit more our panel and go into specific cases. So I'm doing Immersive project in China for a few years now, and I think it's very interesting to share great ideas of things happening outside of China, to give ideas here and to apply this type of things and to see how we could adapt that to our market here. So maybe Eric, start again about your project Jack Ryan. Could you go a bit deeper into this project and explain the offline to online also, this type of thing, social media?
Sure. The Jack Ryan project was the last one on the reel with the helicopter and the sort of obstacle course. Amazon came to us a little over a year ago and wanted to promote Jack Ryan at Comic-Con. They had an idea of building just a straightforward physical obstacle course, and we thought that was cool, but then we sort of flipped the idea and said, well, what if we do a full physical obstacle course, but put you in a headset, put you in a HMD, because the San Diego parking lots are not the prettiest places to do this in, and we wanted to be able to kind of transport you to, generic sort of Middle Eastern setting. So we did that in VR. Lots of learnings throughout it. It was a pretty intense project, I think. Beginning to end, I think we had a little over 3 months to pull it off, which is kind of insane for a project that scale. It had many moving parts. The VR obstacle course itself was 20 minutes long, I believe. It starts with a 4-story climb up to the top of a tower where you rappel out of a helicopter. You rappel out of a helicopter a couple stories, walk across a little rickety plank, get in a little gunfight with some bad guys, and then you do a 60-foot rappel down a zip line, and then you get in a 2.5-minute car chase, and you never take off the headset. It's completely virtualized. Some fun learnings. I think, as far as we know, nothing like this has ever been done. Exterior VR is kind of a hard thing to pull off by itself because the lighthouses tend to hate sunlight, and so just the engineering to make sure it's going to track and track properly was a big challenge of the project. But then even some of the stunts we didn't know if they were really possible. So the rappelling and ziplining specifically, we weren't sure how that would work in terms of motion sickness, for instance. But it turns out it was pretty straightforward. you take the first step on a rappel or a zipline. You take the first step, and gravity sort of does the rest. The challenging bit was actually the plank, because you have to do every step yourself. About 3 steps in, the lizard brain sort of kicks in, and why are you doing this? And so we had many people kind of tap out at that point. I think to bring something like this to life, it requires more than just the throughput. A lot of clients want to know how many people can get through the project. I don't know that the numbers are disclosed, but it's not a lot of people at the end of the day. But that also wasn't the goal. The goal was PR. And from a PR perspective, it was a massive success. And sort of the way you do that is you prioritize VIPs or influencers. There's a whole influencer campaign. We had Ronda Rousey come through. We had 10 different NBA stars come through it, and so then that was what generated the hype. And so we didn't necessarily have to promise throughput. It did have an online component. The sort of rickety plank that you walk across was actually broadcast on Twitch. Well, all of the streams, all the HMD streams were broadcast on Twitch, and users at home. This is actually before Twitch was really implementing any sort of interactive API. So we kind of went first to do that through Twitch, but the users at home on Twitch could launch RPGs at the player or throw chickens in their way as they were trying to get across the plank. So it was a kind of a fully interactive experience for people at home. I think we had something 35 million Twitch streams during the experience. And then another sort of digital extension or take home was at the beginning, all experiences, you have to sign a waiver. You might die, kind of thing, or get really hurt potentially. So you have to sign that. But we made that up. We made that in world, and then you were signing up to be an agent and go through this obstacle course. And during that process, we actually assigned you a little RFID badge, and you don't know it, but you're kind of walking around this whole compound that we built, and we have cameras set up all over the compound. I think we're 10 or a dozen cameras that were triggered by the RFID badge. And so they were taking spy cam photos of you. And so at the end of the experience, we would email you with all your spy photos of you kind of hanging around the sort of bazaar. Another kind of aspect is the bazaar. So we knew the throughput of the obstacle course wouldn't be so super high, but we needed to give people something to do. And so we built an entire Persian bazaar. There was a little ice cream stand. We printed a whole newspaper, sort of in-world fiction, so you could sit there and just kind of read the paper and get entertained. So it was more than the VR. The VR was by far the biggest attraction, for sure. Unless you have any questions.
Okay. We're going to take some questions at the end, of course. Yeah. Maybe John, do you want to share your case?
Sure. In the video, I had a bunch of different examples up. That first one, Jose Cuervo, we were approached directly by the brand, which I must caveat has always been my favorite way of creating this kind of content. I find that, I'd say the last 12 months, we actually fired 2 of our agents because we were just getting so much I guess being one step removed from pitching to the brand, and because a lot of the technology is changing so fast, I've found that in developing these kind of campaigns and content ideas, it's really important to be able to, as the client or brand, comes up with a new idea and pivots, I find that it was almost impossible to be working through a mediated voice. So the Cuervo one, we were approached by the brand to basically come up with the coolest way to launch this new alcohol, new tequila making. And so we came up with this idea of making an interactive skeleton dance party, projection map dance party. So we worked with it was for the Day of the Dead, so November 2nd launch. And we worked with a Mexican illustrator to create these kind of beautiful, elaborate skeleton illustrations, and then worked with a 3D artist to kind of create this rigged characters, and then we used two different forms of motion capture. One was just a simple Kinect that allowed an avatar to be controlled in a projection space. So as party goers went in front of it, they could control these huge skeletons. And then we also used some perception neuron suits to allow a kind of more professional dancers to choreograph these scenes. And then all the content we ported into a VR experience that was about 90 seconds long and just allowed people at the event to experience going inside of this world. And yeah, got a lot of social media credits and it's pretty widely shared. So it was a really successful, fun experience.
Yeah. Let's go. Just to share also, according to what you said at the beginning, you said you enjoy a brand approaching you. We have the same type of problem here in China. It's like if we have an agency in between trying to mess up with the thing doesn't happen. Happy to see the same. So if you're a brand, please come to us directly. Yes. Christine, do you want to share more about the AR project for the World program? So not the hydroponics. Oh, it was not this one. Sure.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of presentations before, so I probably started to cover it. But I mentioned that one of the main reasons we are looking at new media and different types of production of content is really to start to cut through the noise and to tell our stories in different ways that are memorable, that are effective, and to be able to experiment with working with some of the best creators in the world. And so we do have the ability to go to the highest level, and we also have the ability to work with some of the best people. So it's a matter of like really figuring out some of the nuances within the UN procurement process to do that correctly, which is one of our major challenges. But we're also a distribution system at the end of the day. This exhibit has now been in 12 countries in 8 months. So it's really making the rounds. And that's really exciting because it means that there's a lot of people that have never been introduced to us that are out learning about us. And we're using new communications to tell a story about how we're using data innovation and technology to really reach the furthest behind. So it's kind of reinforcing that image of us as a cool, innovative company by using the cool communications to do so. And so the augmented reality basically does that.
Okay, cool. I suggest now to share other ideas about how to use immersive technology in e-commerce. I'm not living in China, but e-commerce in China is a big thing where we order things on Tmall, GD, and I have a lot of requests, from brands or from agencies on how to connect immersive technologies to e-commerce and how we could use it to facilitate transaction more than in China. They are usually more interested in that type of question instead of having a content focus or a storytelling focus on something. So I think you guys have seen some very interesting things. John? Oh.
Yeah, for sure. We've been really interested in how AR has been used by brands. There's been a lot of push, especially in the US, for brands to just create their AR component of their app, which in some ways I don't know how successful it's been. A lot of consumers are hesitant to download an additional app to have an AR experience, especially because a lot of these experiences seem very simple. Like we've looked at, there's this one that Angry Orchard, a hard cider, has made where you download the app and then video content plays in front of it over the screen. So it's kind of boring. It's like, why even do that in AR? But I've seen, there's just been a ton of products that have, created these kind of like AR 1.0 experiences that just don't really seem to land with anyone. I think because consumers are using Snapchat and Facebook, that there's been a lot of, these kind of lenses and filters that have done really well because the platform's already established and people are already using those platforms to interact with AR. One thing that I saw that I really liked, I think it was in RGA Brazil, they created this Burger King AR app, and the animation, when you when you held up your phone and pointed at a competitor's advertisement, it would like burn out the advertisement, and then so you kind of like burnt out the McDonald's M, the M from the logo, and then it popped up a little coupon, and you could get like a free Whopper. I didn't actually try it, but it looked cool. I was like, oh, that's fun. I can see people like interacting with it, and sure enough, I talked to a bunch of friends in Brazil. They had actually tried it, and it seemed pretty successful. So I thought that was a cool use of it.
It was, I think, a huge success. Now this company, we've heard about it everywhere. Yes. Eric, you share it quickly.
Yeah, e-commerce. I think we've done a number of bespoke e-commerce apps. I think we've done a Brazilian makeup brand where you augmented reality, try on makeup. I think the most successful we did as a kind of a one-off app was for Tommy Hilfiger, where you get to basically try to close on a model in front of you, get the model, full life-size model in front of you, swap out all the clothes, and that's fully e-com, it's fully shoppable, as they say. But the trend we're seeing is actually straight to Snapchat and Instagram. The Instagram AR is now hotspot capable, which you can connect to the e-commerce backend, and then Snapchat now has buy now or those types of call to actions. And we're just seeing that as kind of the place to go. Traditionally, these bespoke apps, like the Tommy Hilfiger one, they're really hard to drive traffic to, get downloads. It's a big source of friction for brands, and having to download a one-off app. But in Instagram or Snapchat, all your users are there anyway, so why not go where the users are, fish where the fish are. And so we're seeing a big trend towards AR e-commerce on social platforms right now.
Maybe just to share about what's going on in China. We are, of course, aware of what Facebook and Snapchat are doing in AR, where they created a dedicated platform where you can actually create content that you can visualize through the app of Facebook or Snapchat. And I have this question: does it exist in China? No, it doesn't exist in China. Tencent doesn't do the equivalent of that. We have right now in China some bizarre concept is that the phone makers do not even really believe in AR. So AR Core, for example, is not implemented in all the Android phones. It's still very fragmented. For Tencent, it's not a priority also to investigate AR. So we are quite far from that. Yeah. So I hope that at some point, yes, Tencent will join the club. Yeah. Christine?
Well, I'm not an expert in e-commerce. I actually was at Cannes Lion, and Burger King was on stage every 5 minutes, like cheering and getting awards a lot for that push. One of the things that I think, though, is really important is some of what we're really looking at is this experiential marketing side of things. We see these exhibits that we're producing as an amazing space to convene conversation. So we're popping up at different festivals and different locations and saying, hey, we're here, come talk to us. And that's, again, really new for the UN, even for many of my colleagues. But it's showing a different face to our willingness to engage with the public. And it's actually creating a lot of really amazing dialogue between us and the public, but even amongst ourselves as UN employees, because convening and curating these exhibits means that I'm talking to many different departments, and even in my past job I was working with many different UN agencies and different brands and bringing them together with one story and one narrative, and then having many people come and get to see all of our colleagues' work and to be really proud of what we're doing. We know our mission is really strong, and oftentimes we have one dedicated connection to the different work that we do, but this is a way to see it all in a new light. But it is a challenge because it's quality over quantity, and that's great because you might have a better relationship with those people in the long run, but it's hard to sometimes go against traditional social media numbers and traditional media numbers, and so it's hard to internally kind of make that argument. But that's where, as you're saying, the PR comes in and the documentation of the exhibits come in, so that you're showing not just the product, but you're showing the reactions to it. You're using that space to video different donors and have them talk about your work and make commitments and have different events there, pop up like performances or whatever you can do to make it interesting and to make it effective, so that people visiting can feel a personal related to it personally in some way.
Okay, cool. Maybe we could already take some questions in the audience if some people would like to join the conversation. Tim. Tim is here. Oh, someone else. Oh, where is it? I don't know. Someone.
No.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering how experienced are customers right now that approach you with the idea of implementing AR or VR for a marketing campaign? Are they still naive, and is it like a lot of consulting you have to do, or are they more experienced and know what to expect from a campaign that involves immersive media?
Okay. I would like to take the question from China, and then someone can talk to you. But in China, I see now a trends, a positive trends. I've been contacted recently by a company doing carpets, industrial carpets, and I was like, okay, and they were, would like to visualize our carpet in the space, in VR, and I was like, cool. That makes sense. For the first time, we have something. Okay, it's not for the first time, but we have more and more requests that make sense. Where we can build an application where you can, architect can upload their plan of the house or the building, and then we can build a selector where the architect can choose the color or the pattern of the carpet, for example. So very meaningful. Yes, I don't know if so. I see more and more of these trends where coming with a real idea of using a product in the space, because it's usually we just want to do something cool, we don't know what to do, but being like how to sell a product into a space in AR or in VR. I don't know if you've seen some experience in this conversation.
Yeah, I'd say client education is the most important part of developing any concept. Typically we find that a client may come with an idea, or they've seen something and they're like, could you apply this to what we're making? And yeah, I find that we end up developing and kind of managing their expectations along the entire time. So yeah, I'd say that's one of the biggest aspects of it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a fair amount of client education, although I think it's way better than it was just even a couple years ago. There's definitely a divide in the clients, and that there are some that are very, very savvy. There's kind of a hobbyist crowd out there amongst the clients that want to get into it. A lot of them have been dabbling in it for a couple of years. A lot of them made a bunch of 360 videos and sort of rode the wave over the last few years. I think a lot of brands sort of tapped out at some point. For us, we're seeing far fewer brands in the space. But the ones that are there are, committed into spending bigger dollars as far as we can tell, and they understand the sort of stunt sort of aspect of it, at least for VR, and they just want to see if they can push it and get as much PR as possible. I think the education comes more on the technical stuff, like poly counts and stuff. They really want high-res photorealism. That's just really just not achievable right now, so you have to just get them sort of comfortable with the sort of quality benchmark. But in terms of reach and production process and stuff, they tend to be a bit more savvy. Just
I think on the UN side, it's the awareness is still pretty low. It's something that different agencies have tried, but it's usually like a one-off with one department. And really one of the biggest problems with the UN's entry into this space is that they had this one event, it was an anniversary or the International Day of this, and they were like, let's do this cool thing, virtual reality. And they get a certain amount of money to actually make the piece, or they partner with someone who donates it, and they bring it to this one event, and then they have no idea what to do with it after that, and it basically dies a very quick death. And then they get frustrated and say, I don't like VR, I never want to work in this space again. So one of the big challenges is going back to that set of questions and saying, what is it you actually want to get out of this? What is your financial budget for it? How can you save more than half of that for the distribution side of things and really do a deep planning session to look at the calendar moments where you're going to be able to bring this to many different places, and look at the partners who might be able to help you do that as well. Because money is a challenge for us. I know that it might not be for other people, but yeah.
Maybe another question? Doesn't look. Okay, but maybe, yes, Tim, you have? Well, you have a few minutes, Tim, and yeah, for you, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Do you have the opinion that there's still something like a first mover advantage, or that companies are coming to the market now that don't have necessarily the same experience, but that it doesn't really matter because everybody is kind of easily involved and can buy in people with expertise?
In China, there's not such a thing, so it's the last mover advantage. We call it that this way, yes, Tencent use that. Yes, waiting for everybody else to do something, especially outside of China, and then just applying the things when it's great. You know? Yeah. But I don't know for you if what's the case for you.
I don't know about a first mover advantage. I think there were a lot of brands that rushed into it very early, which was quite the gold rush, which everybody was aware of a couple of years ago, where every brand, I think, in the States was doing it. That's definitely subsided over the last 18 months, and so it's a shorter client list in the XR space. But I think the ones that have stayed, sort of to her point, they thought about it. There was a strategy up front. They set proper expectations, which is always kind of a key point of this. How does it complement your media mix or your marketing, messages, and set the expectations or the KPIs appropriately, so that you're setting yourself up for success and more for learning. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that thinks it's going to go out and sort of change the world, but can you learn from it? Can you get your message out to the right people? Just be targeted with kind of your expectations.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. But I do think from the UN side, there's definitely a first mover advantage, just because, I think we're one of the only NGOs represented on the speaker list here, for example. So this is still helping us to get into a lot of new circles and to have media attention to it, and also to be invited to many places that we wouldn't even have known to go to in the past. So for us, it's very helpful.
Okay, cool. If there is any other question, I think we're good to go. Yes?
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.